Millionaire disguised himself as Uber driver to test his girlfriend and discovered something unbelievable. Michael Thompson never imagined that a single text message would shatter everything he believed about the woman he was planning to marry. The 32-year-old tech entrepreneur had built his fortune creating innovative apps, but nothing could have prepared him for what he discovered on that rainy Tuesday evening in downtown Seattle. His hands trembled as he stared at the glowing screen of Sarah's phone, which she had carelessly left on their kitchen counter while taking a shower. The message was from someone named Jake, and it read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place, same time. You know I'll always be here for you, beautiful." The sound of running water from upstairs seemed to mock Michael as he stood frozen in their luxury penthouse apartment. Sarah Mitchell had been his girlfriend for 3 years, and just 2 weeks ago he had purchased a 4-carat diamond ring that currently sat hidden in his office safe. They had planned their entire future together, from the destination wedding in Tuscany to the children they would raise in their dream home overlooking Puget Sound. But now, everything felt like an elaborate lie constructed around a woman he apparently never truly knew. Michael's mind raced through the past few months, searching for signs he might have missed. Sarah had been working late more frequently at her marketing firm, claiming new clients required extra attention. She had started going to yoga classes that seemed to run longer than usual, and there were phone calls she would take in private, always claiming they were work-related. The pieces of a puzzle he never wanted to solve began falling into place with devastating clarity. As an entrepreneur who had learned to trust his instincts, Michael knew he couldn't simply confront Sarah with accusations based on a single text message. He needed proof, undeniable evidence of what was really happening behind his back. But hiring a private investigator felt too risky in their tight-knit social circle, where gossip traveled faster than Seattle's morning traffic. That's when a crazy idea began forming in his mind. An idea so outrageous that it just might work without anyone ever suspecting his true identity. The next morning, while Sarah slept peacefully beside him, Michael stared at the ceiling and finalized his plan. He would become someone completely different, someone invisible in plain sight. He would test the woman he loved by becoming the one person she would never expect to encounter, an ordinary Uber driver navigating the streets of Seattle. What he discovered during those rides would either confirm his worst fears or prove that love could survive even the deepest suspicions. Within 24 hours, Michael had transformed himself into someone completely unrecognizable. Gone was the expensive haircut, replaced by a simple buzz cut he gave himself in his bathroom mirror. He purchased a beat-up Honda Civic from a used car lot in Tacoma, paying cash to avoid any paper trail that could lead back to his real identity. The car smelled like old coffee and had seen better days, but it was perfect for his undercover mission. He signed up as an Uber driver under the name David Martinez, using a fake ID and address that his tech skills had helped him create with surprising ease. The hardest part wasn't the disguise or the paperwork. It was learning to become invisible. Michael had spent years commanding boardrooms and making headlines in business magazines, but now he needed to blend into the background of everyday Seattle life. He practiced speaking with a slight accent, wore clothes from thrift stores, and studied the routes that regular drivers would know by heart. Every detail mattered because one slip-up could expose his entire operation and destroy any chance of learning the truth about Sarah's mysterious meetings. On his first day as David Martinez, Michael positioned himself strategically near Sarah's office building in downtown Seattle. He watched from behind tinted windows as she emerged from the gleaming glass tower where her marketing firm occupied 3 floors. She looked stunning as always, wearing a navy blue dress that he had bought her for her birthday last month, but there was something different in her expression. She seemed nervous, checking her phone constantly, and looking around as if she expected someone to be watching her. The irony wasn't lost on Michael that someone actually was watching her, just not in the way she might have imagined. When Sarah opened the Uber app and requested a ride, Michael's heart pounded so hard he worried she might hear it when she got in the car. He accepted the ride request, drove to her location, and watched through his rearview mirror as she approached his vehicle. This was the moment of truth. Would she recognize him despite his disguise, or would he successfully infiltrate her secret world without detection? The woman he had planned to propose to was about to become his passenger, and she had no idea that her future husband was about to drive her to what might be the end of their relationship. "Hi, are you David?" Sarah asked, as she slid into the back seat, her voice carrying that familiar warmth that had made him fall in love with her 3 years ago. Michael nodded, keeping his voice steady as he confirmed the destination address she had entered into the app. As they pulled away from the curb, he couldn't help but notice how she immediately began texting someone, her fingers moving rapidly across her phone screen with an urgency that made his stomach churn with anticipation and dread. The destination Sarah had entered led them to a quiet coffee shop in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, far from the upscale restaurants and trendy bars where she and Michael usually spent their time together. As they drove through the busy streets, Michael listened carefully to every phone call Sarah made, every text message notification that chimed from her device. She spoke in hushed tones about meeting someone important, using phrases like, "I really need this," and "I hope everything goes well today." The conversation sounded nothing like the casual meetings with girlfriends that Sarah usually described to Michael when she went out. "Excuse me, driver," Sarah said suddenly, leaning forward in her seat. "Could you please turn up the air conditioning? I'm feeling a bit nervous today." Her voice carried a vulnerability that Michael had rarely heard before, even during their most intimate conversations. He adjusted the temperature while studying her reflection in the rearview mirror, noticing how she kept checking her appearance and reapplying her lipstick. This wasn't the confident, self-assured woman he knew. This was someone preparing for something that clearly meant a great deal to her, something important enough to make her hands shake slightly as she fixed her hair. As they approached the coffee shop, Michael's mind raced with possibilities about who Sarah might be meeting and why she had kept it secret from him. The building was small and unassuming, the kind of place where people went to have serious conversations away from prying eyes. Through the large front windows, he could see several customers seated at small tables, but from this distance, he couldn't identify any faces or determine which person might be waiting for his girlfriend. The mystery was about to unfold, but Michael realized he needed to be prepared for whatever truth was waiting inside that ordinary-looking establishment. "This is perfect. Thank you so much," Sarah said, as Michael pulled up to the curb. She gathered her purse and checked her phone one final time before opening the car door, but then she hesitated, turning back to look at him through the partition. "Driver, can I ask you something personal?" she said, her voice carrying an unexpected intimacy. "Do you believe that sometimes we have to keep secrets from the people we love, even when those secrets might actually help them understand us better?" The question hit Michael like a physical blow, and he struggled to maintain his composure while formulating a response that wouldn't give away his true identity. What she said next would change everything he thought he knew about their relationship. "I'm about to do something that could change my entire life," Sarah continued, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And the person I love most in the world has no idea it's happening. I just hope that someday he'll understand why I had to do this alone." She stepped out of the car and walked toward the coffee shop, leaving Michael sitting in stunned silence as he tried to process her words and prepare himself for whatever revelation was waiting just beyond those glass doors. Michael quickly found a parking spot across the street where he could observe the coffee shop without being noticed. Through the large windows, he watched Sarah scan the interior before walking toward a corner table where a man was already seated. The man appeared to be in his 40s, well-dressed but not flashy, with dark hair and an earnest expression that suggested this wasn't a romantic encounter. They didn't embrace or kiss when Sarah arrived. Instead, they shook hands formally and sat across from each other like business associates conducting an important negotiation. The conversation between Sarah and the mysterious man seemed intense, but not intimate. Michael watched as they spread papers across the small table, pointing to various documents and occasionally making notes. Sarah pulled out her phone several times to show the man something on her screen, and he responded by nodding seriously and making what appeared to be calculations on a notepad. This wasn't the behavior of lovers meeting for a secret affair. This looked more like a consultation or interview of some kind, though Michael couldn't imagine what type of business Sarah might need to conduct in secret. After about 30 minutes, the man reached into a briefcase and handed Sarah a thick envelope. She opened it carefully, examined the contents, and then her face lit up with a mixture of relief and joy that Michael had never seen before. She actually started crying, but these were clearly tears of happiness rather than sorrow. The man reached across the table and patted her hand in a gesture that seemed more paternal than romantic, and Sarah wiped her eyes while laughing at herself for getting so emotional. Whatever was in that envelope had just made his girlfriend incredibly happy, and Michael felt both relief that this wasn't an affair and curiosity about what could possibly cause such an intense reaction. But before I reveal what was really in that envelope, leave a like if you're enjoying this story and tell me in the comments, what do you think Sarah is hiding from Michael? I'm genuinely curious about your thoughts on this situation, because what happens next is going to surprise everyone, including Michael himself." As Sarah and the man concluded their meeting, they both stood up and shook hands again, but this time the gestures seemed to carry more weight, as if they had just completed something significant together. Sarah carefully placed the envelope in her purse and headed toward the exit while the man remained behind to finish his coffee. Michael started his engine and prepared to follow Sarah wherever she went next, knowing that the answers he sought were somehow connected to whatever transaction had just taken place in that quiet corner of an ordinary coffee shop. Sarah walked out of the coffee shop with a completely different energy than when she had entered. Her steps were lighter, her shoulders less tense, and there was a genuine smile on her face that Michael recognized as her authentic happiness, not the polite social smile she wore at business functions. She immediately called someone on her phone, and even from across the street, Michael could see her animated gestures and excited expressions as she shared whatever good news she had just received. The conversation lasted several minutes, and by the time she hung up, she was practically glowing with contentment. Instead of immediately requesting another Uber ride, Sarah surprised Michael by walking to a nearby flower shop. Through the windows, he watched her carefully select a beautiful bouquet of white roses and baby's breath, the same flowers she had carried at her college graduation, when her parents couldn't afford to attend the ceremony. Michael remembered that story because Sarah had told it to him during one of their first dates, explaining how she had bought herself flowers to celebrate her achievement because she didn't want the day to feel incomplete. Seeing her make the same choice now suggested that whatever had happened in that coffee shop represented another major milestone in her life. After purchasing the flowers, Sarah sat on a bench outside the shop and made another phone call. This conversation was different from the first one. Her voice was softer, more emotional, and Michael could see her wiping away tears even as she smiled. She spoke for nearly 10 minutes, occasionally laughing and nodding as if the person on the other end could see her responses. When she finally ended the call, she sat quietly for a moment, holding the flowers and looking up at the cloudy Seattle sky with an expression of pure gratitude that made Michael's heart ache with confusion and longing. Finally, Sarah opened her Uber app again and requested another ride. Michael accepted the request immediately, curious about where this journey would take them next. When she got back into his car, her entire demeanor had transformed. She was practically radiating joy, and the nervous energy from earlier had been replaced by a calm confidence that Michael found both beautiful and mysterious. "Hi again, David," she said cheerfully, not realizing that the driver who had brought her here was the same person picking her up. "I hope you don't mind, but I need to make one more stop today. It's been quite an important day for me." As they pulled away from the curb, Sarah began humming softly to herself, occasionally pausing to smell the flowers she had purchased. Michael had heard her hum that particular melody before. It was a song her grandmother used to sing to her when she was a child, something she only did when she felt completely happy and secure. Whatever secret she had been keeping, whatever business she had conducted in that coffee shop, it had clearly brought her immense peace and satisfaction. But Michael still had no idea what any of it meant or why she felt the need to hide it from him. The address Sarah had entered into the app led them to a residential neighborhood in West Seattle, an area filled with modest single-family homes and tree-lined streets that felt worlds away from the downtown high-rises where they both worked. As they drove through the quiet community, Michael noticed Sarah becoming more animated, pointing out details like a particular garden or an interesting architectural feature, as if she were seeing the neighborhood through new eyes. Her excitement was infectious, and despite his confusion about the situation, Michael found himself genuinely curious about their destination. "Driver, have you ever had one of those days when everything you've worked for finally comes together?" Sarah asked suddenly, her voice filled with wonder. "When something you've dreamed about for years suddenly becomes real." Michael glanced at her in the rearview mirror and saw that her eyes were bright with unshed tears of joy. "I've been planning this for so long, and I was starting to think it would never happen. But today, everything changed. I can finally move forward with something that's going to make a real difference in my life, and hopefully in other people's lives too." Before revealing what Sarah was really up to, I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever worked toward a secret goal that you couldn't tell anyone about? Let me know what you think Sarah's secret dream might be. As they turned onto a street called Maple Avenue, Sarah leaned forward excitedly and pointed to a small house with a "for sale" sign in the front yard. "That one right there," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Could you pull over for just a minute? I promise I won't be long, but I need to see something." Michael parked the car across the street from the house, and he watched in amazement as Sarah got out with her flowers and walked slowly toward the property. The house was charming but modest, with a white picket fence, a small front porch, and a garden that showed signs of loving care despite being slightly overgrown. Sarah stood at the gate for several minutes, just staring at the house as if she were memorizing every detail. Then she pulled out her phone and took several photos, occasionally wiping tears from her cheeks. She walked around the perimeter of the property, always staying on the public sidewalk but clearly studying every aspect of the building and yard. When she finally returned to the car, she was clutching the flowers to her chest and smiling through her tears. "Thank you for being patient with me," she said to Michael. "I just bought my first house and I needed to see it one more time before I tell anyone else. Sometimes dreams feel more real when you can touch them." The revelation hit Michael like a lightning bolt. Sarah had just bought a house. Not their house, not a property they had discussed or planned together, but her house, purchased secretly without his knowledge or involvement. As they sat in the car outside her new home, Michael's mind raced through the implications of this discovery. Why would she buy a house without telling him? Were they not as serious as he had believed? Was she planning to leave him? Or was there something else going on that he couldn't yet understand? "I know this might sound strange," Sarah continued, settling back into the passenger seat with her flowers, "but would you mind driving around the neighborhood for a few minutes? I want to get familiar with the area, and I promise I'll tip you well for the extra time." Michael nodded silently, still processing what he had just learned. As they drove slowly through the tree-lined streets, Sarah pointed out details that caught her attention. An elementary school with a colorful playground, a small library with a community garden, a corner store with a friendly-looking elderly man sweeping the sidewalk. "This is going to be perfect for what I have planned," Sarah said, more to herself than to Michael. "The neighborhood has exactly the right feel, and the house has enough space for everything I want to do. I've been saving money for this for 3 years, working extra projects and cutting expenses wherever I could. My boyfriend has no idea how much I've been setting aside, but I wanted to surprise him with something amazing. Something that would show him how serious I am about building a real future, not just playing house in his fancy apartment." Michael's heart began to race as he realized that his worst fears might have been completely wrong. This wasn't about Sarah having an affair or planning to leave him. This was about her creating something special, something she wanted to share with him but had kept secret until she could make it a reality. The man in the coffee shop, the envelope, the flowers, the house. It was all part of a plan that somehow involved their relationship, not the end of it. But he still didn't understand the complete picture, and Sarah's next words would provide the missing piece of the puzzle. "I'm going to turn this house into a home for foster children," Sarah said quietly, her voice filled with determination and hope. "Kids who have been through trauma, who need a safe place to heal and grow. I've been working with social services for months, getting certified, learning everything I need to know. The man I met today was the final inspector, and he just approved my application. I can officially become a foster mother, and this house is going to be where I make that dream come true." The truth hit Michael with the force of a tidal wave. Sarah wasn't having an affair or planning to leave him. She was planning to become a foster mother, and she had been working toward this goal for months without saying a word to him about it. The secret meetings, the mysterious phone calls, the extra work projects, everything made sense now. She had been building an entirely new life, one dedicated to helping children who needed love and stability, and she had done it all while maintaining their relationship and her career. "The thing is," Sarah continued, her voice becoming more vulnerable, "I haven't told my boyfriend about any of this yet. I love him so much, but he's focused on building his business empire and creating this perfect, controlled life for us. I wasn't sure he'd understand why I need to do something that's messy and unpredictable and emotionally demanding. Foster care isn't glamorous or prestigious. It's just necessary, and it's something I've felt called to do ever since I aged out of the system myself when I turned 18. Michael felt as if the entire world had shifted beneath his feet. Sarah had been in foster care. In 3 years of dating, she had never mentioned this part of her history. He thought about all the times she had deflected questions about her childhood, how she always changed the subject when he asked about her family. He had assumed she was just private about personal matters, but now he realized she had been protecting a part of herself that she wasn't sure he would accept or understand. Before I reveal how Michael responds to this shocking discovery, tell me in the comments, how would you feel if someone you loved had been keeping such a huge secret, even if their intentions were good? Have you ever hidden an important part of your past because you were afraid of how someone might react? This situation is about to get even more complicated, and I want to know what you think Michael should do next. I know I should have told him from the beginning, Sarah said, her voice breaking slightly. But when you grow up in the system, you learn that most people have opinions about foster kids that aren't very flattering. They assume we're damaged or difficult or that we'll never be able to form healthy relationships. I didn't want him to see me differently, so I created this version of myself that I thought he would love. But now I realize that I want to use my experience to help other kids, and I can't do that while pretending my past never happened. As Sarah continued talking, Michael began to understand the full scope of what she had accomplished. She had not only purchased a house and completed the foster care certification process, but she had also been volunteering at a local children's shelter for over a year, gaining experience and building relationships with social workers and child psychologists. The extra work projects she had taken on weren't just about earning money for the house down payment. They were about proving to the state that she had a stable income and could provide for children who might come from difficult situations. The hardest part, Sarah admitted, was doing all of this alone. There were so many times when I wanted to share my excitement or ask for advice, but I was afraid that talking about it would somehow jinx it, or that people would try to talk me out of it. Foster care is challenging, and I know there will be difficult days ahead, but I also know that I can make a difference in these kids' lives, because I understand what they're going through in a way that most adults never could. Michael realized that while he had been building his tech empire and accumulating wealth, Sarah had been quietly working towards something far more meaningful and impactful. She had been using her own painful experiences to create healing for others, and she had done it with a determination and selflessness that made his business accomplishments seem shallow by comparison. The woman he thought he knew had revealed herself to be someone even more remarkable than he had imagined, someone worthy of admiration and respect, rather than suspicion and surveillance. "I think I'm ready to tell him now," Sarah said, looking out the window at a group of children playing in a nearby park. "The house is mine, the certification is complete, and I've already been matched with my first placement, a 7-year-old girl who's been in 3 different homes this year. She needs stability and patience and someone who won't give up on her when things get difficult. I think my boyfriend will understand once he sees how important this is to me, even if it changes the life we had planned together." As they continued driving through the neighborhood, Michael struggled with the realization that he had completely misjudged the woman he loved. Every suspicious behavior had an innocent explanation. Every secret had been kept out of love rather than deception. But more than that, he was confronting the uncomfortable truth that Sarah had been right to keep her plans secret. He had never shown interest in social causes or helping disadvantaged children. He had never asked her about her childhood or shown curiosity about her experiences before they met. He had been content to love the version of Sarah that fit comfortably into his successful, privileged world. The final stop on Sarah's journey was a small toy store in the same neighborhood where she had just purchased her house. Michael watched as she carefully selected items that seemed chosen with specific children in mind: a stuffed elephant for comfort, art supplies for creativity, and books that dealt with themes of resilience and hope. At the checkout counter, she spoke quietly with the elderly woman who owned the store, explaining that she was preparing to welcome foster children into her home and wanted to make sure they felt wanted and valued from the moment they arrived. "These kids have been through so much," Sarah told the store owner, unaware that Michael was listening to every word. "Some of them have never owned a new toy or had someone read them a bedtime story. I want them to know immediately that my house is different, that they're safe and loved, and that someone believes they deserve good things." The genuine emotion in her voice as she spoke about children she hadn't even met yet revealed a depth of compassion that Michael had never fully appreciated, even after 3 years of being with her. As they loaded the purchases into his car, Michael found himself looking at Sarah with completely new eyes. This wasn't the woman he had planned to propose to based on her beauty, intelligence, and social compatibility. This was someone with a mission, someone who had survived difficult circumstances and chosen to use that survival to help others, rather than simply moving on and forgetting her past. She had been quietly preparing to become the mother that she had probably needed when she was young, and she had done it without any guarantee that the man she loved would support her decision. "Driver, I have one more request," Sarah said as they prepared to leave the toy store. "Could you take me back to downtown? I need to go to my boyfriend's office building. I think it's time to tell him everything, and I want to do it face to face. I've been carrying these secrets for so long that I'm not sure how to start the conversation, but I know I can't wait any longer. The little girl I'm going to foster will be moving in next week, and he deserves to know what he's getting involved in if he wants to be part of my life." Michael's hands trembled on the steering wheel as he realized that Sarah was about to end their charade by going directly to his office. In a few minutes, she would discover that her Uber driver was actually her boyfriend, and he would have to explain why he had been spying on her instead of simply asking about the changes he had noticed in her behavior. But more importantly, he would have to prove that he was worthy of the remarkable woman who had just revealed herself to be everything he had never known he was looking for. During the drive back to downtown Seattle, Michael's mind raced as he tried to figure out how to handle the situation that was rapidly approaching. Sarah sat quietly in the back seat, occasionally checking her reflection in her phone's camera and practicing what seemed to be the opening lines of the conversation she planned to have with him. "Michael, I have something important to tell you," she whispered to herself. "No, that sounds too serious. Maybe. I have a surprise that I hope will make you happy." She was clearly nervous about his potential reaction, which made Michael feel even worse about the deception he had been carrying out. As they got closer to his office building, Sarah's anxiety became more apparent. She called someone, probably a friend or counselor, and spoke quietly about her fears. "What if he thinks I should have told him sooner? What if he doesn't want children in his life, especially children who might have behavioral challenges or trauma issues? What if this changes everything between us?" Michael wanted to reach back and comfort her, to tell her that everything would be okay, but he was trapped in his role as David the Uber driver, unable to reveal his true identity until they reached their destination. "I keep telling myself that if he really loves me, he'll want to be part of this journey," Sarah continued during her phone call. "But I also know that this isn't what he signed up for when we started dating. He fell in love with the successful marketing executive who fits perfectly into his world of business dinners and charity galas. I'm asking him to love someone more complicated, someone who comes with responsibilities and a past that isn't pretty. That's a lot to ask of anyone, even someone who claims to love you." Hearing Sarah articulate her fears made Michael realize how much courage it had taken for her to pursue her foster care dreams while maintaining their relationship. She had been living with the constant worry that her true self might not be acceptable to him, and instead of testing his love by revealing her authentic desires, she had chosen to protect both of them by keeping her plans secret until she could present them as a completed reality rather than a risky possibility. When they finally pulled up in front of Michael's office building, Sarah took a deep breath and gathered her belongings. "Thank you so much for all the driving today, David," she said sincerely. "You've been incredibly patient and you've helped me get to some very important places. I hope the rest of your day goes well." She handed him cash that included a generous tip, smiled warmly, and stepped out of the car. Michael watched her walk toward the building where he should have been waiting for her in his executive office, and he knew that the next few minutes would determine the future of their relationship. Instead of following Sarah into the building, Michael made a split-second decision that surprised even him. He drove quickly to the parking garage beneath his office building, abandoned the Honda Civic, and ran to the private elevator that would take him directly to his penthouse suite. His assistant looked shocked when he burst through the doors looking disheveled and out of breath. But Michael didn't have time to explain. He needed to clean up his appearance and prepare for the most important conversation of his life, one where he would have to prove that he deserved the trust of the extraordinary woman who was probably already on her way up to see him. "Cancel all my afternoon meetings," Michael told his assistant as he rushed toward his private bathroom. "I don't care what they're about or who they're with. The only person I want to see today is Sarah Mitchell, and when she arrives, send her directly to my office without any delays." He quickly washed his face, changed into a fresh shirt, and tried to compose himself before Sarah discovered that her carefully planned surprise conversation was about to become something much more complicated than she had anticipated. Within minutes, there was a knock on his office door. Michael's heart pounded as he called for Sarah to enter, knowing that her face would soon reveal whether their relationship could survive the revelations that both of them were about to share. When she walked into his office carrying her flowers and wearing the same navy dress she had worn during their ride together, Michael felt a rush of love and admiration that was stronger than anything he had experienced during their 3 years together. "Michael, I have something incredible to tell you," Sarah began, her eyes bright with excitement and nervousness. "I've been working on a surprise for months, something that I hope will show you how serious I am about our future together. I bought a house, and I'm going to become a foster mother. I know it might seem sudden, but this is something I've dreamed about for years, and I finally made it happen. I hope you'll want to be part of this journey with me." Michael looked at the woman he loved, seeing her clearly for the first time since they had met. She was offering him the chance to be part of something meaningful and challenging, something that would require him to grow beyond his comfortable world of business success and social status. This was his moment to prove that he could love all of her, not just the parts that fit easily into his previous vision of their life together. But first he had to tell her about his own secret, the one that had led him to discover the truth about her character in the most unexpected way possible. "Sarah, before you say anything else, I need to tell you something," Michael said, his voice trembling with emotion. "I found that text message on your phone last week, the one from Jake, and I thought you were having an affair. Instead of talking to you about it, I did something that I'm not proud of. I disguised myself as an Uber driver and followed you today. I was your driver, David Martinez. I heard everything you said, and I saw everything you did." He watched as the color drained from Sarah's face, and her expression shifted from excitement to shock to something that looked like betrayal. "You spied on me?" Sarah whispered, sinking into the chair across from his desk. "You thought I was cheating on you, so you decided to follow me around instead of simply asking me what was going on." Michael could see the hurt in her eyes, and he realized that his lack of trust had probably wounded her more deeply than any suspicion of infidelity could have wounded him. "How could you think so little of me after 3 years together? How could you believe I was capable of that kind of deception?" Michael moved around his desk and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his despite her obvious reluctance to be touched. "You're absolutely right to be angry with me," he said quietly. "I should have trusted you enough to ask direct questions instead of assuming the worst. But Sarah, what I discovered today wasn't just that you weren't having an affair. I discovered that you're an incredible person with a huge heart and a mission that makes my business accomplishments look selfish and shallow. I discovered that I don't deserve you, but I want to spend the rest of my life trying to become worthy of the love you've been offering me. The man you met today, Jake, he wasn't your lover. He was the social worker who approved your foster care application, wasn't he?" Michael continued. "And the text message that made me so suspicious was him confirming your final interview. Everything I thought was evidence of betrayal was actually evidence of the most selfless thing I've ever seen anyone do. You've been building a life dedicated to helping children who need exactly the kind of love and stability that you never received when you were their age." Sarah pulled her hands away and stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the Seattle skyline. "I kept my plan secret because I was afraid you wouldn't understand," she said without turning around. "I was afraid you'd try to talk me out of it, or make me choose between you and the children who need my help. But your reaction is so much worse than I imagined. You didn't just doubt my commitment to you. You doubted my character completely. That's not something I know how to forgive." The silence in Michael's office stretched between them like a chasm that might be too wide to bridge. Sarah remained at the window, her shoulders tense with disappointment and anger, while Michael struggled to find words that could repair the damage his suspicion and deception had caused. He realized that proving his love for her would require more than apologies. It would require demonstrating that he could become the kind of partner who deserved to share in her mission of healing and hope. "Sarah, I know I can't take back what I did, and I know that sorry isn't enough," Michael said finally. "But I want you to know that watching you today changed me completely. Seeing your compassion, your courage, your determination to help children who have been through trauma, it made me realize that I've been living a superficial life focused on success instead of significance. I want to learn from you. I want to help you. I want to be the kind of man who supports your dreams instead of being threatened by them." "It's not just about supporting my dreams, Michael," Sarah replied, finally turning to face him. "It's about understanding that my past shaped who I am, and that past includes experiences you've never had to face. Foster care, poverty, instability. These aren't abstract concepts to me. They're the reality I survived, and they're the reason I need to help other children survive too. If you can't accept that part of my story, then you can't really accept me." Michael walked to his desk and opened the drawer where he had been keeping the engagement ring for 2 weeks. He pulled out the small velvet box and held it in his hands, not as a proposal tool, but as a symbol of how much he still had to learn about the woman he wanted to marry. "I bought this ring because I thought I knew everything I needed to know about you," he said quietly. "But I realize now that I fell in love with the version of yourself that you created to fit into my world. I want to fall in love with all of you. Your past, your mission, your complicated, beautiful, challenging reality. The little girl I'm going to foster, her name is Emma, and she's been hurt by adults who were supposed to protect her," Sarah said, her voice becoming stronger and more determined. "She's going to need patience and consistency and people who won't abandon her when things get difficult. If you want to be part of our life, you need to understand that it won't always be convenient or comfortable. Are you really ready for that kind of commitment? Or are you just feeling guilty about spying on me?" Michael set the ring box on his desk and looked directly into Sarah's eyes. "I'm ready to prove it," he said simply. "Not with words, but with actions. Let me help you prepare Emma's room. Let me learn about trauma-informed care. Let me show you that I can be the kind of partner who makes your mission stronger instead of more complicated. And if I fail, if I can't handle the reality of the life you're building, then you'll know that I wasn't worthy of you anyway." 3 months later, Michael stood in the kitchen of Sarah's house, their house now, watching his fiancée help 7-year-old Emma pack her lunch for school. The little girl had been with them for 10 weeks, and while there had been challenging moments as she learned to trust them, there had also been breakthrough moments that filled Michael's heart with a joy he had never experienced in any business deal or financial success. The transformation in Michael's life had been complete and profound. He had sold his penthouse apartment and moved into Sarah's modest house, using the money from the sale to establish a foundation that supported foster families throughout Washington state. His tech company now donated a percentage of its profits to organizations that help children in the foster care system, and Michael had become an advocate for kinship care and family preservation programs. "Emma, don't forget your art project," Sarah called as the little girl grabbed her backpack. Emma had been working on a drawing of their family, herself, Sarah, and Michael standing in front of their white picket fence house, all of them smiling and holding hands. It was the first time Emma had ever drawn herself as part of a family, and Michael kept a photo of the picture on his desk at work as a reminder of what truly mattered in life. The engagement ring that had once symbolized Michael's superficial understanding of love now represented something much deeper. When he had finally proposed to Sarah properly, it was in Emma's presence, asking both of them if they would be his family. Emma had been the one to slip the ring onto Sarah's finger, declaring herself the official ring bearer and family coordinator. Their wedding was planned for the following spring, and Emma was excited about her role as junior maid of honor. As Michael watched Sarah braid Emma's hair and listened to their easy conversation about the day ahead, he marveled at how wrong he had been about what constituted a perfect life. The controlled, prestigious existence he had built for himself paled in comparison to the messy, unpredictable, deeply meaningful life he now shared with Sarah and Emma. Every day brought new challenges and new rewards, and Michael had learned that real love wasn't about finding someone who fit perfectly into your existing world. It was about being willing to build an entirely new world together. Their house had become a haven not just for Emma, but for other foster children who needed temporary care while permanent placements were arranged. Michael had learned to comfort frightened children in the middle of the night, to celebrate small victories like successful school presentations, and to provide stability during the inevitable setbacks that came with trauma recovery. He had discovered that his business skills translated surprisingly well to advocating for children in the legal system and coordinating care teams with social workers and therapists. What struck Michael most profoundly was how much he had grown as a person since that day when he had disguised himself as an Uber driver out of suspicion and fear. The man who had been threatened by his girlfriend's secrets had become someone who celebrated her strength and supported her mission. The entrepreneur who had measured success only in financial terms now understood that the most valuable achievements were the ones that changed lives and built character rather than bank accounts. Looking back, Michael realized that his decision to spy on Sarah had accidentally led him to the truth he most needed to learn, that love wasn't about controlling or monitoring or protecting yourself from disappointment. Real love was about trusting someone enough to let them surprise you, supporting them even when their dreams challenged your comfort zone, and choosing to grow together rather than demanding that they shrink to fit your expectations. What do you think about Michael and Sarah's story? Have you ever discovered that someone you cared about was completely different from who you thought they were? Tell me in the comments about a time when you had to choose between your comfort zone and supporting someone you loved. And if this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please share it with someone who might need to hear about the power of second chances and the beauty of love that grows stronger through challenges rather than weaker. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories about real people making extraordinary choices in ordinary circumstances, because sometimes the most powerful transformations happen when we're brave enough to let our assumptions be proven wrong.